Hi, everybody. So we are gearing up towards the final poster online conference extravaganza. So just a reminder that that is on reading day, so Thursday, April 30th, and it will go from 10 a.m. to noon. At the top of Moodle right now, there is a link in Zoom to, there's a link to a poster logistics sheet. And what we're going to need from everybody on that logistics sheet is a Zoom link so that we can find you, and then also your poster title. And so please get those in by the end of the day on the 29th, because the TAs and myself and anybody else who's available on Thursday morning to come look at posters is going to be popping into those meetings to come talk to you. And that is really fun. So make sure to add that information. Just as a reminder, and I'm going to say this again, but the posters themselves are due also on the 30th. So don't forget to upload your poster to Moodle as a PDF, as well as presenting it. Another reminder, I sent an email about this last week, but if you're going to be here in the fall, we are actively recruiting TAs for the Intro GIS class that gets taught in the fall. There is a link at the top of Moodle. You can follow this link as well to fill out a Google form to tell us, about your interest in TAing. Basically, everybody at this point in the semester thinks that they don't know enough information about GIS to be qualified to TA. That's pretty normal. But if you're interested in GIS, if you're interested in revisiting these labs again from sort of a different perspective, getting a little bit more practice with GIS, getting a little bit more one-on-one tutorials with the grad TAs, and Forrest, who's the instructor in the fall. TAing is a really great experience to solidify your GIS knowledge. And it also counts towards the GIS certificate. So if you're thinking you might work towards that, really good option to do that. I just wanted to show you guys Moodle for a second, just as a reminder that at the top of Moodle, you have that Google Sheet with all of the extra help hours for this week and the beginning of next week leading up to the final poster. You can sign up for hours with Becky, the GIS librarian, so lots of availability for extra help all during the day as well as in the evenings. Here's that link if you're interested in TAing this fall. And then lastly, this is a new link to this sheet here, which has everybody's names in it, your time slot. So basically it's just alphabetical. The early alphabet folks are in the 10 to 11 Eastern time slot, and the later alphabet folks are in the 11 to noon. If you can't make your poster slot for some reason, just email me. You can, especially if you can make the other poster slot, you're more than welcome to switch. Just swap them in here. Give me a heads up through email. So you're going to input your Zoom link here and your poster title. I should probably make that bigger. Poster title over here. Reminder on Zoom links. Right? If you click the button that says schedule down here, then you will be able to schedule a future meeting to put in that time slot from 10 to 11 or 11 to 12 on April 30th. And then you just want to copy paste. I'm not sure if I can. So if you click on show the meeting invitation, then you can basically, copy that Zoom link from here and paste that into the Zoom link place right there. Okay, so that's exciting coming up. So what I want to talk about today is basically, how do we do this stuff? Like, how do we get prepped for putting our posters together? I'm going to post a separate lecture video on the actual logistics of putting your poster together in PowerPoint. So this one is mostly focused on how to get your stuff, the stuff that you're going to put on your poster assembled, what content goes in the poster, and how to present it. So before we get started, here's a tip of the day. Up until now, we've mostly been using ArcMap documents for, when Arc crashes, you can get back to where you were before. But really the purpose of an ArcMap document is to save your map. So use ArcMap documents to your advantage as you go through and you create a nice map. Save that as its own, do a file save as and save it as figure 1, poster figure 1, whatever it is, poster figure 2. The idea being that you can then go back to poster figure 1 if you decide, I really needed the text to be a little bit bigger, it's really not showing up super well. You just open that up again, make the text bigger, save it again, and voila, you're done with that piece. So here's just an example of a figure that I made once in history of some Phragmites australis points that somebody wanted to do some genetics on or something like that, where it was basically like, okay, well, I'm going to put a bunch of dots on this map. I'm going to make a legend and put a scale bar on it. And if the person, who was putting this proposal together wanted something different, then I can always go back to figure 1 and change the color of the dots to be, more red or darker or something like that, whatever it is. So use that save as on your ArcMap documents so that you can easily go back and find all of that information again. Okay, so next question is, what kind of content actually goes on a poster? Just like any other scientific presentation, a poster is always going to have kind of, I guess, 5 aspects. And one thing that I didn't actually put on this poster display is an abstract. So an abstract is a key piece number 1, introduction, methods, results, and discussion. It's totally fine if you want to combine your results and discussion together. Generally, when people read, or at least the English-speaking world reads, we start in the upper left corner and we work our way to the lower right corner. And so the order in which you put things or you organize things on your map should reflect that, right? We read left to right, we read top to down. So in this case, we want to start with the abstract and the introduction. We want that to be on the left side, ideally in the upper left corner. So here's one example of a layout where we've got the introduction on the left, some text to introduce us to this concept. The abstracts that you wrote for your methods outline, those go right on this poster. The study area map, that may well be your key figure for your introduction, along with maybe a picture of an organism if you're studying a particular organism, picture of a motorcycle if you're doing the motorcycle analysis. So that's the abstract and introduction. Methods comes next. So your methods you could use, so you can describe your methods. This could be include that table of data sources that you created for your methods outline. It could include bullets, and it's totally fine to have bullets that aren't complete sentences as long as they're understandable, just to describe the process that you went through. And in your methods, you may also have some figures that you've created. That could be within GIS. It could be screen captures of some of the steps. That's okay too. Ideally it's some map or zoom in. It doesn't have to be the entire map. It could be a zoom in to really illustrate the key pieces that you worked through. And then the last thing that you're going to have is your results and your discussion piece. So ideally, if your results are like the star of your poster, basically, if your results are really what you want to talk about, then you want them to be as prominent as you can make them. And I'll show you another example where results are a little bit more prominent than in this case. In this case, I would say the arrangement of this poster is such that the methods are really the star, right? And it's totally fine if the methods are the star, right? You may really want to talk about these cool methods that you came up with, or these different processes and steps that you figured out how to do. It doesn't matter if it's with my help or somebody else's help. You figured out those steps, so tell people about how you did them. Then results and discussion, right? This could be a map result. It could be a graph, whether that's a histogram or a bar chart or something like that, that you create in Excel from the data that you've extracted in GIS. It could be a number, like, 25% of this land area is at risk of whatever it is, right? It is not necessarily just a map. A lot of times in GIS, our end results, like we think there should be a final map for this, but maybe there isn't. Maybe it's a graph, maybe it's some numbers. Okay, here's one example of an outline, right? Intro, then methods on the top, results and discussion on the bottom. Here's another example of an arrangement that you could do. Strictly left to right, introduction, methods, results and discussion. Here's another outline of things you can do. This is an example where the results and the discussion are really prominent, right? You really want to showcase this final map that you created. And so you're condensing a little bit abstract introduction methods, onto that left side, leaving yourself lots of space for this super cool map that you created so that you can spend the bulk of your poster time, talking about this. Okay, so here's some tips for getting all of this stuff onto your map or onto your final poster. First is save your maps as JPEGs. Up until now, you've been saving them as PDFs, or you saved some as JPEGs, but you've also saved as PDFs. So save everything as JPEGs because PowerPoint likes JPEGs pretty well and will take them in easily. Use Google Images to find pictures. So for your intro section, especially if you're studying a particular organism or a particular thing, object, whatever it is, find pictures of it. That's, posters are visual ways of conveying scientific information. So, be visual on this poster. Give us something cool to look at. You can copy and paste graphs or charts directly from Excel. The only challenge with that is that sometimes if you resize them, it can make things funky and the text can get too small to read. So another option is that you can also take a screen capture of your Excel graph and then copy paste that into PowerPoint. And PowerPoint is where we will make our final posters. On your poster, anytime you have a figure or a table, make sure it has a caption and make sure also that it's referred to in the poster text, right? If you've got figures that are just floating around and you're not actually going to talk about them in the text, then do you really need that figure? So make sure that you talk about all of your figures in the text and that they have a caption. Hopefully your figures will be more intuitive than this one. Remember that anytime you have a scale bar and a legend, if you have multiple data frames in GIS, when you insert a scale bar or you insert a legend, it's going to be associated with the active data frame. So when you're in your layout view, making the data frame active is as simple as clicking on the data frame that you want so that it has that little blue highlight around it. You can also, in the table of contents, right-click on the title of the data frame, and there's an Activate button in there too. Before you produce your final map, please make sure to think about the intuition of your scale bars. So you go back to those symbology tools that you learned way back in Lab 1, delete all those zeros after the decimal place. Think about changing the bins of things to numbers that are going to be easy for people to read, right? Just because GIS divides this into 22344.00000 doesn't mean that you have to, you can say 22,000 to 35,000, 35,000 to 45,000. You can create your own bins in ways that are close to what GIS, suggests for evening them out, but are going to be much easier for people to read. Another point related to that is resize your scale bars so that they're in units that are more understandable for people, right? So 280,000 meters on a scale bar. Two things about that. One is probably kilometers is the better unit to go if you're displaying the area of Massachusetts or the length of Massachusetts. The other thing is make it 300 kilometers or 250 kilometers or something like that. Just because GIS puts in a default doesn't mean that that's the best choice. Another thing to think about in terms of the poster tips is to make sure that whatever it is that you want to spend your time talking about, the thing that you found the most interesting or the coolest or the hardest, to work through, that's what you want to be the star of your poster. So if that's the final awesome map, your results, make that really big on your poster. Give it some space on your poster. If it's the method steps that you went through, make that the star of your poster, prominent front and center. It's always really tempting to put a lot of content on your poster, but sometimes less is more in terms of actually conveying a visually appealing poster that you're going to be able to explain to people. And then the last piece, just like when we make maps, is to think about white space usage on your poster, right? So that's not necessarily white. In this case, it could be blue space too. You want to try to even things out so that there aren't, like big gaps, and similarly that there aren't, big chunks of a whole bunch of text jammed together. All right, so the way that this poster is going to be evaluated, so half of it is on content. So what did you guys do? If you are following some of the steps from the different suggested final posters and you go through those tutorials, then you're going to be all set in terms of getting the content there. The other half of the poster is presentation. So do you have introduction, methods, results, and discussion? Are you following good cartographic design with your maps? Are you labeling all of your figures? Are you using our intuitive poster layout? Basically, is this poster nice to look at? And use the TAs for help, and me for help if you're trying to figure out, does this look good to you? Ask us. We're happy to give you suggestions. And then lastly, I said this at the beginning, but don't forget to upload your final poster. You can upload it to Moodle by the end of the day on April 30th. So as soon as you've got that poster done, get it up into Moodle so you don't have to worry about it again. You want to upload a PDF, ideally. If you can't export a PDF, you can also upload a JPEG. That's okay. All right, so next thing is, how do I present this thing, right? So here is a nice example of a map or a final poster created a year or two ago. This was a poster the student came up with. So you can see there's a nice study area map in the upper left, got intro methods, and then the results and discussion. And then you've also got this final map as the kind of big star of the poster. So this is a nice example of, I think, visually appealing and content-rich poster. But you're going to be at least visually or virtually sort of standing, or your head's going to be hovering in front of this thing, right? So what do you do when somebody shows up first thing into your Zoom link and you want to tell them about it? Well, the first thing you say is, hi, I'm Bethany. Can I tell you about my poster? And hopefully they're going to say, yeah, that's what I'm here for, right? So what you want to prepare is what we like to refer to as an ABT, or an and but therefore. So this is to launch you. This is to get you started with presenting this poster. And after you do your little spiel of these 4 sentences, then you can really get into the, here are the methods that I did, and here's the results. But at least if you have this, you get that kind of hook to bring people in. So an and but therefore statement is basically 2 sentences that set the stage. So here's my background, and here's another piece of background. Then you want 1 sentence that's going to give some tension, or create an unknown, or ask a question. So this is known and this is known, but this piece is unknown. And it doesn't matter if it's actually totally unknown, as long as you're exploring this thing, you know, like it was unknown to you going into this process, right? And then that last sentence is, here's what I did to address this unknown thing. So here's an example from invasive plants, which is what I spend all my time on research doing. So invasive plants negatively impact ecosystems, and climate change could shift their ranges, but we don't know exactly where these invasive plants are headed. So therefore, this project is modeling the potential changes in the range of 1 invasive species under mid-century climate. So real short, 4 sentences, you can write those down if you want to, and read them or memorize them, so that when new people are coming in, you're going to be kind of repeating this thing. So, and then where I would go from this is, so this project is modeling the potential changes of this invasive species. Here's what I did. First, I found distribution data for this species. I downloaded it from this website. Then I found climate data for both the current and the future conditions from this other website. Then I put those 2 pieces together. I extracted the climate data to the locations where that species exists. I created these histograms that I'm pointing to on my poster right now to show you what that suitable climate range was. And I used all of that information to create this map that I can point to on my poster of current suitable climate. And then I use those same climate conditions to look at future suitable climate based on that future climate model. And here's where this species is likely to be by 2050. So that's an example of about how long you want to be thinking about talking about your poster, because then whoever just jumped in is going to want to ask you questions. It's going to want to say, oh, cool, can you zoom in on that histogram? Can you zoom in on that map so I can check it out, a little bit more? I'm really interested in, in learning more. Another example of an ABT statement. This is one, we actually had a poster a couple years ago about the zombie apocalypse. So zombies are scary, and The Walking Dead suggests that a zombie apocalypse could happen at any moment, but survivors need to know where to go to be safe. So therefore, this analysis identifies high and low risk from a zombie attack in Massachusetts. Okay, just you don't have to be totally serious about this thing either. All right, last thing is just some recommendations. So if you save your poster as a PDF, this may work as a JPEG as well. Then open that poster in Adobe as a PDF. Adobe is easier than PowerPoint to pan and zoom. I think this might be true of, if you open a JPEG and sort of the default program that would open a JPEG. So play around with that a little bit before your Zoom presentation, right? You've got a little bit of practice to do. One is to make sure you've kind of got a sense of how to move around your poster, how to zoom in, zoom out relatively, easily. And the other is to practice that presentation itself, right? So get your ABT together and think about, how you want to talk about the poster. You are going to be in that Zoom link that you post into the data sheet that's at the top of Moodle. And you want to make sure that you've shared your screen in Zoom. And remember, the share screen is like a green button at the bottom center. And then just keep an eye out for people joining your meeting. And anytime somebody new comes in, you welcome them, ask them if you can tell them about your poster, and then launch into your ABT spiel. Don't forget about TA office hours this week and next week for help with all of this. So that includes, getting the final project pieces put together. I know many of you guys are working on those, and it takes some time. It is the final presentation. You can also absolutely ask the TAs for help with putting the PowerPoint poster itself together and for their advice. They've all been through this. We're really eager to help, especially at this stage. And we're also happy to have you guys come by office hours and just hang out with us. You can turn off your camera, put yourself on mute, and just, work away. And then anytime you've got a question, pop back in and ask it. Absolutely, absolutely fine and totally appropriate. Okay, guys, so I will be back momentarily with another video to show you how to actually put the poster presentation together in PowerPoint.